The agenda, review and approval of the minutes of March 9th, 2023 minutes. And officers, number 6, regional impact vote, applications and public hearings, and that's planning board 23-010 with the site plan review. Fieldstone Land Consultants, PLLC, on behalf of Webster Forces and Services, has submitted an application for a site plan review to construct a commercial landscaping facility and attached multi-family housing on undeveloped land located at the junction of West Swanzey Road and West Street. Property within 73 lot 12-2 in the business district. And that has been postponed till our April 27th. Next, under discussions and other business, preliminary conceptual consultation, Greg Johnson on the mixed restaurant property, that has been withdrawn by the applicant. Alternate member application, Michael. What is it? Scungio? Oh, Scungio, okay. Thank you. Sorry. And the site plan review applications, planning workshop, and any other business as may be required. And, okay, so minutes of March 9th, 2023. Does anyone have any observations or anything like that on that? Nothing major. Just put it away though. Just wanted to clarify, I was on page 4, and the first sentence says, Lane asked about the deed restriction on the airport property. We should specify that that is, I think, plain view, they call it.
Yes.
So we'll just specify plain view property so we know. Anybody else have anything else on those minutes? If not, motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Motion by Victoria to approve as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Richard Lane. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, with those. Now, election of officers. We have the chairman and vice chairman. Do we have any volunteers for that position?
I have a nomination. If you're ready.
No volunteers, I guess. Either position, vice chairman or chairman. And a nomination is in order.
You can't get off the hook. I nominate Scott Self as chair, and in the spirit of this round, you can't stop. We have this second generation thing going on that I think is kind of wonderful. And in that spirit, I'd like to nominate Richard Lane as vice chair, given the fact that his father served as selectman for many years and as planning board member for many years.
Yeah, you did.
You did.
So we have a recommendation of myself, Scott Self, as chair, and Richard Lane as vice chair. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Dwight Jarosinski. Discussion. I've never liked being chairman of this board, or any of the board really, because the only reason I don't mind doing it, I'll do it, but the reason is that you can't fully participate in the meeting. You're too busy running the meeting. You can participate maybe 50%, 75% sometimes. You can't do the full concentration. That's why I kind of usually ask for volunteers if want to take over. But we have the second, we have voting on the floor here for nomination. So I think that ends up a further discussion.
Which makes you perfect for the job.
Yeah, thank you. Well, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's settled. Now, before we start the regular agenda, Mike Jasmine and Julie Steele.
My father always told me, Scott, better be careful what you get good at, even more careful when you children.
Let me write that down. You two have something for us before we get going tonight?
Yeah, I think I'll present the meat of it and chime in in case I butchered it. So if you remember, I came by and I presented Richardson Park to you guys. We do have a little bit of an amendment to it to some degree. Nothing major. First part of the more technical portion of this is that some of the comments from the butters was that they had concerns with the light piercing up over the lake. Our goal is to use some of the funds in this project to amend those lights so that they do conform with our regulations and downwards. But on that same topic though, we are also in the process of installing those lights on the side of this structure. Code enforcement had concerns, that primarily on the architectural plans, they were depicted as proposals to include, but not presented as such. They should be there. So the actual contractors, if they could do it, and they could do it for both pieces. It will be the same feature for the new, what is the existing structure and what is the proposed structure, it'll be the same style, and downwards. There was a couple questions about motion sensor or not motion sensor. I still think we're gonna go with the idea of it not motion sensor, only because there's a like people go wide and it's not, should be shining downward, but not shining upward. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. That's kind of the majority of both, but just wanted to include the board on this topic, if I'm concerned. Please approve that.
Those lights are on photocell.
Yes.
Another time to follow photos on
Yeah, not,
LED,
yes. That's the intent of it.
so they can run all night.
What is photocell?
Well,
Pardon?
What is photocell?
Photocell is, it's like a on-off switch. And during daylight, it's off. And as soon as it gets dark enough, the switch closes and turns the light on. And as soon as it's light enough, it opens and turns the light off.
you can't manually turn it on, correct? Is my understanding of that?
Not usually with a photocell,
Depends how the-
unless you have a switch above.
Do it any way you want.
That's fine.
You get a good thunderstorm, something like that, it's very cloudy, will they come on?
Yeah, if it gets a little dark, yes, it will.
It depends on the sense. You can set the sensitivity. You get a lightning that will shut them off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, just the lighting is the change?
That's all we're looking at?
And in the same place you said on the existing building that the original ones are on?
Yeah, so the current building, yeah, we can take those off. We're gonna get a full quote on that, soon from you guys that are doing the work.
Thank you for taking your time to present that to us.
What did you guys do about that?
Yeah,
People very
appreciate it.
questions.
Yeah, we blame it on you anyway.
That's true. Thanks.
Mr. Jeff, would you have anything? Oh, you're just backing him up in case we gave him a hard time. Okay. All right then. Get on with our agenda, which is regional impact vote. Actually, there's nothing on here. So no regional impact vote is required. So that brings us to alternate member. And Michael Scudero, right? I'm gonna mess that up every single time.
And it's quite the spending.
Scudero, okay. I'm gonna write that down here for me. Okay,
Michael S.
great. Anything to add, presentations or, I read what was written about you.
Like, not too much. So I have Bachelor of Science in Construction Management and Architectural Engineering. I haven't really been working in the industry too much since I graduated several years ago. I actually worked in the aerospace and defense industry as a systems engineer. So I've primarily done that for approximately the last 7 years. Other than that, I grew up around the industry, not necessarily around the industry. Going for southeastern Massachusetts, moved to Swanzey back in December 2016.
Great. And you're interested in being on the planning board?
I'm very much in
Okay. If not, we need a motion to nominate Mr.
Scungio, so moved. I nominate.
I'll second.
Scungio.
To be an alternate to our board, and, okay, that motion was made by Victoria, seconded by Brandon. Any further discussion? And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Good work.
We'll have to get sworn in.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And you can count all through that, right? Count circles for you.
He's gone. I don't know. George record to see if he has.
George, are you here for your property? Because, oh, you're not?
Sean have anything going on?
Sean?
No.
Who was that? Oh, nobody, no, but it was, there was a preliminary discussion, conceptual discussion with the planning board that was, by Greg Johnson, that was withdrawn. Just on the
I
stuff.
thought it might. I was around.
Well, wait. Let's see, we have, next on, you can have site plan review regulations. We've been working on these for quite a while, and it's good to get them done and out of the way, so.
I've got one that I've already given to Sarah. It's on page 7. Number 3, that was actually a new law on that got rid of that.
Probably going by a different,
It's the board may apply to the selectmen for an extension not to exceed an additional 90 days before acting to approve conditional approval or disapproval on an application.
7.03.
Have the original one here.
that he's going on the original.
He's going on the
The
original.
real original one?
The real
I have a copy-
original.
Okay, I have a copy. of the
Everybody's going off the original
Okay.
one.
Okay, so I've got,
7.03.
just not to confuse everyone, I've got a draft that, remember, we were working on it before. And we went through it and reorganized, altering, Sarah and I did, and we discussed it with the board and stuff, and I've got a copy of that draft, so I was going on that, so that's why I'm on, let me get on the other page. And just go through it.
No, it's this packet, yeah, this one that we just got like, was it last meeting?
That law is from removed.
Nope, yeah, right here.
Oh, zoning one, yeah.
This is it right here. It was something in this paragraph, I don't. Yeah, I remember which part.
Do you want to go through this? Excuse me, Scott, do we want to go through this chronology?
We should go page by page, I think, just to run through it, there isn't, we can't really, we shouldn't really jump around on that. Start from the beginning, we renumbered everything before now, in the old book, just to refresh everyone's memory before we start going through it. In the old, like on page number 5, it started on 701, everything else was section Roman numerals and all that type of stuff. And then on page number 5, it started on 701, and then it just, it was mix and match. So, that renumbering is all done. And see in the draft, there are.
Yeah, is that, what would you prefer to work off of? Draft or what?
But then everything copy is draft.
Well, is that one of the copies of the draft or is that the original?
This is what was given out a couple of meetings, 2 or 3 meetings ago.
Yeah, I'll tell you which one it is, I go to the here. I'm on page. Is it page 7? Okay, go to page 5 and see if it begins. Yeah, page 5. It doesn't begin with 7 on page 5 on your. We use them both anyways.
Yeah, 701.
Okay, so you. Okay, so. Turning right off, page 1. Anybody have anything? Perfect.
Yes. Just the thought that we revisit the master plan and the statement of principles to coincide with what our purpose is here. Compatibility to the surrounding neighborhood is a key item in the master plan. And, if our job is to, part of our job is to look at a master plan and try and keep the town in that direction or whatever, and yet we're not doing that, then we have a conflict. And I'm just wondering whether or not we need to change something to make it a little more compatible with our master plan, under the purpose.
Are you saying, you adding in some wording there?
Yeah, well, in the master plan, it speaks to our purpose being, and looking at things to be compatible with the neighborhood and existing surroundings. And going back to the Plainview, or however we want to look at it, up at the airport, that doesn't really fit into the master plan. I know it's allowed by zoning, et cetera. That's something that we maybe want to look at, somehow amending that. But, how do we justify, or how can we make things a little more compatible with our master plan and our purpose?
So, yeah, the one up by the airport, definitely, we all know that it did not fit into that neighborhood. One of the reasons I didn't object more to that is because when the courts looked at that from the ZBA, it was first challenge from the ZBA, the courts looked at it and they looked at an entire business zone, not just an area up there. So that's how they saw it. Who knows if another court would see it that way, but they saw it, the entire business zone, that, oh yeah, that's compatible, because down here we have in this business zone, and, with the business zone in town, we have stuff like that, so that's how they saw it, it's compatible with it. So that's a problem. We don't know how the courts are ever gonna go. We do have, about aesthetics and so on, in our zone, our site plan review regulations.
True.
And we do try and stick to them, but that being decided previously by the court, we weren't gonna win that, in my opinion, anyway.
There's something I still don't understand about the decision that the court made. I don't understand why I understand that it was a 2-2 decision, but the fifth justice had recused because she is an employee of the firm that represents Avenue Development. Now, it would seem to me that in my heart and soul, I feel that it was an error that they didn't have a substitute for her in a case like that, that meant enough to a community that they took it to the Supreme Court. And I don't know who to approach about that. It's too late, I understand, to do anything about it now. But things like that happen. And in having a master plan, the reason you have it is to plan for the best and most appropriate future development of your community. And we all know that that really was not the best and most appropriate use of that small piece of land by the airport, business zone or not. There were other businesses that would have been much more appropriate in that place. And so I understand what Richard is saying, because that's what a master plan is for, is to help us plan for the best and most appropriate use of our land and for the future of our community. I mean, there was a nice big wide spot down by Gamarlo's too, but was it the best use of it right on a state highway to put 82 apartments right there for the future of our community? I personally don't think so, but I mean, this is why we have a master plan. A master plan means that it's the master of
It sets
the plan.
the direction of the community.
Yeah.
In oncoming years, but it's mainly used, supposed to be anyway, mainly used by the planning board to enact zoning regulations. That's supposed to set the stage for the planning board coming up with how we're guiding to the town, how we want development to go into town, what's allowed here, what's allowed there, what isn't allowed, and so on and so forth. But that's plan pretty much, the main purpose of it is for that, doing that, and we do use for that thing. Right.
But it is, it says right here that it's a legal prerequisite for adoption of zoning ordinance, adoption of a historic district, establishment of a capital improvement program, and adoption of growth management ordinance. And the reason for it is planning. It's to help us plan well. So maybe, I don't know, I won't have to hear it or see it, but in 20 years, we might hear people saying, what in the world were they thinking? Let that happen, you know?
Again, those things have to be addressed in the zoning ordinance itself and not necessarily site plan review regulations. But the one thing, the zoning ordinances, any of the ordinances are passed by the town, all the people in the town. These regulations are just passed by this board. So it can't be too powerful. We aren't supposed to be in guidance.
Could we work on the landscaping and screening portion of it, so that if something doesn't fit in, but is allowed by zoning through exception, it could be shielded from the surrounding neighborhood? With the idea that it
That's definitely one of the
goes
things that
toward
we do.
the fitting into the neighborhood.
How would you shield a 43
Well,
foot
but
tall building?
But that's just,
45-foot trees.
However-
Well, basically, you would need enough boundary.
what we tend to do is opt towards the minimum, right?
Right.
So if instead of only requiring the minimum that our site plan regs call for, if we said in this instance where we have a situation that requires a great deal more screening, then perhaps we need to sacrifice some of the building bulk and instead use that for green space. And I think where we really run into trouble, and I think we're going to continue to do this until we get brilliant about this, is the areas where we have residential abutting business districts, you know, because we, in our zoning map tends to have, you know, the business district running along our major arteries, but historically that's where we've had houses, you know. So it happens all over town, and it's really, you can't spot zone, right? But I think if there could be a way where we could be more thoughtful about trying to, and perhaps it is landscaping, you know, perhaps that's the only tool we have, but trying to make those, the really divergent uses work better together, you know, protect one use from the other use.
And again, we're talking about the property, two properties that we're talking about now are residential, actually, you know, we aren't talking about actual business.
Yeah.
Actual uses.
Yeah, so it was a
Multifamily. But
Yeah.
wasn't anticipated that it would be residential and business in the business
I don't
district.
see how we can control the density of landscape. Density is one thing, density.
Well, we could screen against the objective view of people going, that looks ugly. That's what we can do. You're right, density, you have to write your density requirements to what you believe should be the density of that lot. Which we have.
And which we did.
Which we have, we
Plain
changed.
view is no longer allowed on that.
Right, no, it would not be allowed.
So Flatley is up in the woods.
Right.
And there
If
aren't-
you have enough property to do that, you should do it. If you don't have enough property, you shouldn't build 3 or 4 stories.
No.
True. Well, also, it would help with the, which we don't like to use the word anymore, aesthetics, but it would have helped with the aesthetics had we put a buffer requirement on them. There are buffers in other places. We don't use them much here. And I think we need to start looking into them. And I'm not into protecting the developer if this is my community. And I don't care if it's Flatley or Avenue. If they come into Swanzey and they want to build something astronomically hideous on the roadway that I'm going to drive by all the time. I want them to do all they can to make it look as inconspicuous and less inoffensive as they possibly can. So if they have to spend $10,000 or $40,000 on buffer materials and plant the trees on top of them, I think they should. And I think that would have helped. If I were going to live in that building, I would not want to look out at the traffic flying by on Route 10 or people filling their gas tank at Gomorrah. So I think that it's up to us to ask for those things.
How can we create construct a zoning statement that will be compatible with what we're discussing this evening? Any ideas?
I think you'd have to use height. That's about the only tool you have there.
Maybe like a ratio for the setback, amount of buffer based on the height.
Could be that, or just a specific story height, 2 stories allowed in this part of town, 2 stories, or 3 stories allowed in rural ag, that type of.
Of height requirements in each zone.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
That's
But, trying to put 45-foot trees in front of a
No, you
building,
can't.
you can't do that.
They might die before they reach something.
For argument's sake, you can have, okay, you've got to have a 10-foot setback. But for every additional story above 2, you need an additional so many feet of setback.
That's what.
Now, you look at where I am over in the old Haley Park. There is a nice buffer zone between the buildings and Route 10. You don't have that in other places.
Only because those trees were there. I mean, yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter whether they were there or not, I'm glad they were there.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's why you have that buffer. The buffer is still the same distance.
Yeah, but for every so many feet of height, you can require so many feet of setback to bury the property, bury the building back into the property.
I don't think there would have been anywhere near the objection had that project at the airport been put up where Flatley's property is, where it's back off the highway and out of sight. The fact that it's right.
Because he didn't get any complaint at all.
But that's it's how do we, again, going back, how do we set up a zoning ordinance that will control that type of a project and not make it incompatible?
Mm-hmm. If we can do that, that can solve a lot of problems.
You can take.
Could require different heights in different zones.
You could. We have to think about it and make sure that it would pass muster, we'll say a challenge, correct, make sure that we aren't trying to eliminate.
Spot zone.
Well, not spot zone, but eliminate certain types of housing.
I don't think that would be the purpose of, or the intent.
People go to business as well.
Yeah.
In certain zones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd have like the site company to come into them.
And even at that, most of them are not really visible from the highway. Thinking of the industrial park area, especially.
Well, even the ones on Route 12 they're based on a lower piece of land. They're not built right up even, the first floor is not even with the, you have to go down.
This circles back to what Jane was saying about the master plan too, because when those surveys were conducted, each time the master plan's been updated, people have always talked about how it's the rural character of Swanzey that people really value, the citizens value here. And I, it's not something that we can define what rural character means, but we all know what when we see it, and what we're going to see on, across from Wilson Pond is not what we consider to be rural character.
It's not just Swansea either, as it states in this NHOPD directory. It says for preserving and enhancing the unique quality of life and culture of New Hampshire. So we're going to be seeing that just fade away if we allow that to happen.
In the meantime, they're shoving these housing units down our throat.
Right, but we don't have to swallow it.
You know, until the judge says, yeah, you do. Like they did in the CBA.
Well, according to the master plan, though, we've really met our obligation. You know?
Yeah, we can't use a master plan to fight something.
No, but we can feel good about the fact that we have actually, you know, we have permitted more units than would be our fair share for a municipality. I mean, we've got the numbers to show that we have.
It's 408. And that's gonna be 800 people.
Yeah, and there does becomes a question of what's our capacity, you know?
Well, you know,
A lot of
they yelled at for by people, and I say, well, you have to look into how it's, if we have it in that site plan regulations, what effect does that have on all our services like fire and police and everything
Keep
else?
ratcheting up.
Sure, because you have to have so many police officers for your population, which is 2.1 to 1,000. You need for police officers. Well, we don't even have that right now. Plus, the fact is, it's hard to get police officers these days. And the fire, you know, is the fire inadequate? Who knows? In your schools?
Yeah.
We're gonna build bigger schools now?
Apparently so.
Sounds stuff. We're going to build them 4 stories high.
But they, you know, we can't really put this in the master plan, and shouldn't even be saying it, but if we limit our extension of the sewer and water, then we limit that kind of development.
That's true. That's true too.
That's the bottom line.
And the West Swansea right now, West Swansea Water Company cannot provide the fire protection in most of them. They have to do something.
No, but they'll still use the cistern as sewer. I mean, if they can hook up to the sewer, then they're gonna be building it there.
Right.
They can get water enough, they don't care about the suppression as much as they do the sewer part. So, you know, we watch on how we're extending those systems in the future, then we're watching how we're extending development. And right now, we are at capacity. In my opinion, we're at capacity. Just because of
Really?
well, design capacity is 160,000 gallons a day. We're running between 60,000 and 70,000 gallons a day down there. But when it was built, we didn't have restrictions or limitations on customers. We do now. So that changes the volume quite a bit. The system down there. So we're keeping up with it. We're able to maintain it down there. But that should be looked into or considered with any other type of development. Really, what the real capacity is down there.
That new development, I forgot what the numbers were, it was gonna add for that.
Around 3,000 gallons a day. You're not even gonna see it that much, but still, I mean, you know, it's having something.
That one's 3, and then the next one is another 305.
Yeah, it's the gallons per day is, like I said, what it's designed for, but it's the loading part of it, which is the nutrients, the food, and going into that lagoon system, and the ability of the bugs to take care of it before it goes out the other side into the river down there. And there's a new permit coming that the town is going to be, maybe 6 months from now, we're going to be on that permit at some point on that permit, and more provisions in that permit. They're gonna give us an aluminum number, which means the chemical we're using down there is polyaluminum chloride to settle out the phosphorus in there. Okay, so that adds aluminum to the water. So now they're putting a limit on aluminum that you can put out in the river, and it's like, I don't know, maybe 5 micrograms. That's 5 parts per billion. We would never make that at all. So we would have to change some kind of process down there in treating the phosphorus just to meet that number and still meet our phosphorus number. And I think they're going to have a number on iron as well. And the PFAS chemicals there that you ever hear everybody talking about, they're going to give some sort of a limit on that, but they can't do it yet because they haven't located a lab that can actually test it. And those are parts per billion. They haven't located a lab that can test it. But anyway, that stuff's coming down the line for this plant down here. So it goes back to what I said about extending the sewer line up there. Maybe if another one comes in, we say we can't do it because there's the infrastructure down there. We got to do something about the plant first.
It's good to know.
Yeah, as far as the master plan, relating back to the master plan, you can do that in there, but again, the site plan review regulations are pretty much following our zoning regulations, which follow the guidance of that.
Mhm.
But how about what Steve was saying with the, I wonder if maybe Sarah knows some other towns that have something like a, you know,
I think there is something in our zoning about that. I don't recall, but I remember when that place that Steve lived in was going up down there, that was the highest building around. There was a problem because, you know, things were going high. They were talking about that. But I don't know if it was in our zoning or not. I haven't seen it.
but I wonder if it's something we might be able to put in our site plan regs.
I would imagine it is, in case someone challenges that.
Yeah.
Well, we do say that we want to minimize the disturbance of the natural
Yeah. that would-
lawn, you know, so if they propose to go and cut all the pine trees and then build the three buildings, the planning board probably would have said no, you know.
Yeah, probably would, yeah. The setback thing that Steve was talking about. Something, yeah, you can't control that because of that and density or no density. But again, the density has been changed, so. So, this works like clean.
So I spent some time with the purpose section, because I don't know, because it's first. And what I did is I broke it up. I like turned that block of text into individual numbered points, okay, and kind of shuffled the language around and double checked it against what the state says that we shall and may include in our purpose section or in our regs. So I have that. I can give it to you.
It basically says the same thing as.
It's basically the same thing, but it's reorganized in a way that feels to me like it addresses what our more primary objectives are. Yes.
Or work it in the draft and get the draft.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's each one.
Yeah, then everyone can read it over. So that's the purpose section. Anybody have any more comments on the purpose section? If not, let's see, scope of review. Just thinking, we've reorganized it as well. It was out of order quite a bit from the original one that we have here and the draft one that we had been working on before. Some things are before other things in it, which makes more sense.
You want to just read through in your order and maybe everybody else shuffle?
That's a good idea.
So authority is still one and purpose is two.
Yeah, it's like purpose is two, that's right. That's one. And then, scope of review, anybody have anything on that? I had something. It had to do with, it's just a redundancy in the ordinance. It says, the land use office is directed not to accept a site plan review application that does not include written permission from the owner of the property. And then under section 5 general, number 5 on that, it might not be number 5 in yours, but this is not this one. It says it's about the same thing. It says the applicant with site plan review must either own the property in question or earn written permission from the owner. The land use office is directed not to accept the site plan review application that does not include written permission from the owner of the property. I'm just suggesting you get rid of one of those.
Does they say the same thing?
It's exactly the same thing, it's redundant. But under scope of review, I think we ought to get rid of that under the general part. So, under scope of review, does anyone have anything written in there or a sign off? Okay, if not, so we are going to. My purpose is general.
Mhm.
So we have there, we've got
Should the 100 and 200, should the 100 and 200 be for the ratio of the total current building or parking area?
This is for an exemption, right?
Right.
An expansion of 200 square feet greater than what the unit. That's one parking space, what that is. So they could put in one parking space without, for the board. Square foot or greater to a building that, hasn't come to the board as well.
So the difference between like market basket and Dollar General. Should one parking space be allowed for Dollar General? Only one for, market basket put in four. Here are 4 times the size.
So that's what you meant by proportion.
Yeah, proportional ratio.
Yeah,
Or is it over?
it might be, we've had that in there for a long time.
It might be a reason why you'd want to restrict one over the other because of the topography of the land. Some places you would say, no, we don't want you to expand it at all. Because, you get into the aquifilter and all these other problems.
Yeah, so they voted the way it is, 100 square foot greater for building and 20 square feet greater for parking area. And again, we're talking about businesses, we're talking about someone's house, single family or two family home. We're talking about 3 family or larger. I don't think so. Anybody else on maybe the next one under that is general.
Under permission to visit the property under general, where we have the right to go in and inspect, should we have some sort of identification that we can show the owner, or is it because they don't know us?
No, they don't, and it should be put in there that we have to request permission to the property owner, because you shouldn't be able to just, whether we're planning board or not, just walk on the guy's property and say, well, I'm here to look around, We should have to call ahead a day or two and say, we're coming over, I'm coming over, whatever it is.
Or even the staff should.
Yeah, so we should have some wording in there, we can come up with something that says that with permission from the property owner. Want to come over, but if it's more than 4 to quorum of the meeting.
But again, should we have some sort of identification to give to the landowner or to show the landowner?
If the landowner owner notifies that Scott Self is coming to his property, I suppose you could issue your license.
Even if it's a business card type thing, it's your license.
Yeah, but if they know who's coming, yeah, but
Yeah.
Rich is right. How do they know who the planning board member is? No, I don't know. So should be identified for sure.
Did you want that to be added as well? Something about, a member needs to identify themselves for a site visit? Or?
Yeah, let's not put that in there. We don't want to paint ourselves in this one. But, yeah, we should, if we're gonna do that. The property owner should be notified. If they're notified, they know we're coming anyway on that time and on that day, so.
Years ago, we used to know everybody.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. I'm sure we're on yours, but there's just a note in the plan that says neither preliminary or conceptual consultation nor design review are required. This is just a note. And then pre-application review shall be separate and apart from formal consideration of the site plan review application, and the time limits for acting upon a formal application do not apply. I think we should just add until a completed application is accepted by the board.
Okay, going along in that line of thought, can we put in our review regulations that on what we would define as complex project, i.e. This one by Nix or the one where they're going to put in the storage for soil and et cetera, that we have a conceptual review of it before we even act on application. My thought process is let's look at something, give ourselves time to review it thoroughly before we start the clock.
So it's my understanding that we can't require that conceptual. If we can strongly recommend it in the site plan things, but we can't require it.
Under why?
Because the RSA's don't allow us to do that. And we can't require a design review either. We can require a site plan. They give us, in the regs, they give us the authority to require site plan review and to review site plans. So if they don't give us the authority to make them come in conceptual or design, that I understand it. I'm understanding it. I think that's the case. But we still, I think we have it in our site plan review regulations that we do recommend it. And I'm going to take a look to see what I was skipping around and mine went to that because it's in order of how we do things. The reorganization of this is in order. It's how the board actually does it, right from the rule always on up through. And the original one here is way out of order. Trying to figure out what's going on. We'll look into it to find out if it's in the RSA to give us the authority.
Because it says pre-application phases, and again, just trying to buy us more time before we start the clock and then get ourselves into a box that we can't get out of.
We have under the submission requirements, that was the old section 10. Old section 12. Submission requirements. We've got the owner's name. Under just on number 2, which is the north arrow, scale of 50 feet equals 1 inch, and the name and address of the flat. 40 feet per square inch is pretty much the standard. So I haven't seen that 50 feet. That's the way to put
We should change our checklist then too, because you say at 1 inch equals 30 feet.
Yeah, we should change that, right? Oh, but 30 feet, which way are we now?
Yeah, we got that.
Yeah, so it should be changed to 40 feet. I think that's pretty much the standard for any local project. Underneath that category there. Underneath other, that's on page 20. And it says the application shall be accompanied by any necessary federal, state, or local permit and approval. But we should change that to should, because the board cannot deny acceptance of an application just because the applicant doesn't have the approval of whatever, some permit or something like that, or even the zoning board for approval. We can take it and add that as a condition. Not accept the application just because of something like that. So we encourage them to do that, and they should get all that stuff done, but instead of shall, I think the board should.
Before you go further on that, going back to 11,
Page 11?
no, section 11, under the 4-year exemption.
Yeah, that's 5 years. I think, is that what you were gonna say?
No, I
We
just,
could change that to 5 years.
okay, yeah.
What page is it?
That's page 19 of the original. But what were you gonna say?
What constitutes substantial?
The planning
Could
board
be, because,
determines, go ahead.
I was gonna say, because we agreed to the one up on Route 12 by the fairgrounds. We said, okay, substantial constitutes you taking all the old buildings out of there and leveling everything out. And that constitutes, the substantial requirement, which he had a year to do something with. Well, nothing's been done since then, other than I think they drilled for compact, if the
They
ground.
do the soil testing out there.
Yeah, that was done a number of months ago before winter set in. But what actually constitutes substantial?
It's up to the board to decide that.
It's a subjective term.
One by one on each property or each plat that we're deciding on, to the board to come up with what is substantial. We don't have a set thing because the project is different.
Right, we don't want to, again, bury ourselves because it's a subjective thing and
So that's what constitutes it. The board agrees. Somebody says, no, that isn't substantial. The other one says, yes, it is because it's such and such. So we hash it all out and the board decides.
Hmm.
And again, that's a 5-year exemption now. I think that's 674 for
really get that one at 703, chapter 3, right? Section 1C, page 7 on the original. I know you and I and Sarah talked about it. That's the one where they changed the law. We no longer can pass the selectmen for an extension.
Yeah, right. We got rid of that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Not much. Again, it was the old section 12. If I can find it in here. These numbers are all different now. And all my notes are in this other one here, but let me just read the paragraph to you. It's under describing how the applications are processed. And it's, it says the application shall be submitted to the planning board at the next regular meeting, which notice can be given. And the board shall determine if the submitted application is complete according to these regulations and shall vote in its acceptance. Such meeting must occur within 30 days following delivery of a completed application. Acceptance of the completed application by the board shall occur at regularly scheduled meetings after notification to a butter has been given as required by RSA 2764. And just after that, we use this everywhere else in our rules of procedure. Probably ought to say, and a public hearing may immediately follow or be scheduled for a date.
So what RSA did you cite again?
That was RSA, that's 676.4 ID. That's just a notification RSA that tells who has to be notified and all that business there. 676.4 I, and that's D in there. Again, that's just referenced in this paragraph, just for notification purposes. So we wouldn't have to write down the whole 9 yards, notify them how they're notified and so on. I'm just thinking we should add that sentence that we may have a public meeting there. And we also have, again, it's not in order here, but we have board action on a completed application. And we've got in there, the board shall begin consideration of the completed application within 30 days of the date the application is accepted as complete by the board. So we aren't required to do that. There's no statute requiring us to act upon it within 30 days, just to act upon it within 65 days. That's all it is. Now, we can have it, anything we want like that in our regulations. We can do that, but again, we might be, painting ourselves in the corner or something.
Why do we shorten that time frame? Why do
We haven't shortened any. I'm just saying that this is in our site plan review regulations that, which y'all can be in consideration, and we can keep it that way too. It doesn't matter. It's just an option. We aren't required to do that by statute. It's an option that the board can do. If we want to put it in our regulations that we will start considering the application within 30 days of accepting it as complete, then we leave it in there and do it.
But we still have to,
We have to do it anyway. It
we
doesn't.
have to have the meeting to accept the application.
Yeah.
30 days.
That's within 30 days of when the application's been submitted. 30 days to act on it there, but we don't have to act on it in 30 days after that. We've got 65 days to act on it. We don't have to start in 30 days. We can start 3 meetings in there as a simple thing like that.
But
No
we have
big
to
deal.
be done by 65.
65, you're done by 65.
So you have 45 days,
If,
not 45, it's only 35.
depending on the meeting fall within the whole.
Yeah, again,
I'm just saying, just pointing out it's in there, seeing what the board wants to do. The board
Push
wants to.
things off too far then, when you paint yourself in the corner.
I don't really work, yeah. You're not really putting it off, I'm just saying if the board wants to keep it in there, we don't have to have it in there. It's never been a problem, I don't think, since I've been on the board.
Less is more.
So you're saying we've never reverted to this item to cause us to
I'm saying
start
after-
moving.
No one has ever come in
Yeah.
and said, hey, you guys didn't, start considering my application.
Yeah.
It's been well within 30 days, or after 30 days that you accepted it as complete, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Never had that happen.
If the RSA allows 65 days,
Mhm.
I don't understand why we shortened it to 30 days.
So we didn't shorten it. What we're doing is that we're just telling the applicant that the board is going to act upon your application that we accepted at a meeting. We're going to act upon that within 30 days. We still have 65 days to make a determination, but we're going to act on it within 30 days and get things going. That's what that paragraph said. And we're just promising to them that we're going to.
Which we'll probably do anyway.
We do it.
Yeah. Probably.
Just leave it.
You can just shorten it.
Franken
Okay.
that.
So we're not held to it.
Yeah, if we're gonna.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So at the end of the 65 days, that has to be done though, right?
Right.
Like so if we wait too long, I think is what somebody else started to say, towards that 65-day mark when we have to approve it or reject it, then if we wait until day 60 and we only have that 5-day interval there, then you can't continue it to a next meeting, right?
Not unless the applicant says, yeah, we'll give you an extension. But we have to make a decision, yes
So-
or no. And we're supposed to know that.
So then if we had another project like the one at the airport, which was how many meetings did we sit through? And we wait until day 60 to bring that up in front of the board, we're only gonna have that one meeting right then and there to whether approve it or reject it.
Yeah.
Correct?
Right. That's why we should know enough not to do that.
Right.
Well, that's why I was bringing up that review before we start
Review.
before we start the clock.
And it is also, it's a good idea to do that. And if there are things, if applicant decides not to do the conceptual or the design review and just comes right in with the application, the planning board, if they don't have the information that they need, they can either deny it without prejudice, so they come back in again, or whatever, but they have to tell them what they need for information, and it's gotta be, something that can be defended.
Is it something that we could get Sarah to suggest when they come in with their application
I think she does.
for a review?
We do kind of go through the motion of that unofficially, and we do recommend it in things that are more complicated. I mean, I believe with Flatley, didn't they come in before this.
They did a conceptual, yes.
But not all applicants are amenable to that process.
Again, that's one thing if the planning board has all the information, but if we don't, then they can either agree to an extension or review a decision.
Would you mind if we just back it up to that last thing? Are we striking the 30-day requirement?
I think we might as well, because
Keeping it.
we aren't required to do it by statute. We do it anyway, so rather than put something in there that we forget about and we didn't do it, that it was 31 days and we acted upon it, then we got somebody like Adam, or not the name names, but wanted to cause trouble for us, but
If we had a stickler.
that's stickler, very good, yeah. So,
Does everybody understand what Scott's proposing here? So what would happen is you would receive the application and you would accept it as complete. And the rule right now says you have to act on that. You have to take the next step within 30 days. But statutorily, you have a 65-day period to complete your action on any application. So this is just removing that 30-day shelf. You still would have been aware of the application to accept it as complete, which would start the clock. Day one, right? So it wouldn't be like it's day 60 and we just found out about it because you would have had to already have accepted the application.
Okay.
You know, so if you guys were waiting until day 60, you would be getting very negligent.
But I don't like the idea of, if the statute gives us 65 days, why we would even think about shortening the legal permit.
We're not.
You're not.
and we can't,
So it's 65 altogether, then 30 is just in the middle of a 65. It doesn't. It's the beginning of the 65.
Starting to
it's just a
consider,
board rule,
yeah.
just a board rule, it's not a statute.
Yeah, you've got, supposed to follow the rules, so,
Well, that's
That's why we want to get rid of it.
yeah.
You really believe it's never enough to work.
That's why we have them, Chief.
Strike that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but unless you can think of how it got there in the first place, Scott, you probably wouldn't.
I think it got there by mistake, because of the 30-day,
Yeah.
you have to act on the application within 30 days of it being submitted to the land use board. And I think they just said, well, we're on a 30-day act on it, yeah, it sounds right. I think that's how it got there.
There's no penalty if you haven't.
No, there isn't, no, it's just a, yeah, well,
It's a suggestion.
it is.
Is it statutorily stated that once we accept, or if we went to the 30 days, that 30 days is included within that 65-day period? Does it say that specifically?
It says, yeah, it says that, it says that from the day the board accepts the application, that's when the 65 days go. Yeah, if it's run out to the 30th day that we've got to act on it, since it's been submitted to the board, when we accept it on that 30th day, then it starts the 65 days. But the board can't discuss it unless it's preliminary or conceptual before that. It's just been submitted to the land use office.
Mm-hmm.
Got put on the agenda, notice is sent out, and the board takes a look at it. So we've got 30 days to do that, to accept it as complete or not.
We understand that. You understand that. Sarah understands that. But in the future, somebody might not understand that. So maybe that would be a reason to leave it there.
I don't follow that one at all.
Yeah, that's
No.
not, that's a different 30 days.
Oh, yeah.
This is
it's
the
different.
30 days
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they're two.
for the
pretty
board to
different.
meet and decide whether or not it's
Confusing.
complete.
Okay. So actually, we have 95 days from the time that it's submitted to the land use board.
Okay.
We do.
I mean, to the office.
95 or
And when
less.
it's in the office, any board member
You
can
could
go
do
in
it.
there and take a look at all the stuff, you know, the plans and all that type of stuff. We can all do that without discussing it in a meeting and still be familiar with the plan before they even come in for acceptance.
Which I have done on occasion.
Okay, is that something then, not to load up Sarah or Mike or whatever?
Sarah has them all, they're all.
No, but what I'm saying is, if something like that comes in, that we get a notice that, okay, we have this application, please come in and review.
Oh, yeah, email.
Is that,
Yeah, saying it was a little complicated.
no,
I have the plan
you know,
here.
I'm not trying to burden you with anything.
But when,
Well, they don't get the department head review.
but when we're doing it, you know, if there are two planning board members there, you can't really discuss and say, well, I don't like this, or this isn't right, or that's not right.
Okay.
Just.
Jot it down.
We're gonna go over plans later, just how to review them, just basic reviewing on them. That's what we should be doing. Just get familiar with the plan and not necessarily discussing it with one another, whether it's 2 people or 5 people or whatever.
I can potentially add you guys onto the department head review email that I send out, but do not respond to it as a department head and review the plan. It would just be the heads up that, I do that for any information that comes in to planning and ZBA. And
Yeah.
then you know there's a
That
plan
would
in the
work.
office and you can come look at it.
Yep.
Or you'll have the plan on your computer and you can look at it.
If people wander in when somebody else is there, we just, while we're waiting, we come back later. Don't go upstairs. Yes.
Okay, underneath that one, mine is B, but let me just read the paragraph because there's no huge change here. It says, the board shall act to approve, conditionally approve, or disapprove the completed application within 65 days plus 30 days for development of regional impact of submission, except as otherwise provided herein. That submission should be accepted. Because if it's within 65 days of submission, whenever they submit it to the land use office, they think they're starting their 65 days there, but it's not.
That's true.
You need to change that word submission to acceptance. So we just, you guys have me to bring it up there. I'm under a public hearing. This is the old 7.05 here. And it's just that, just a small thing here. I'll read the paragraph. After the application is accepted as complete and prior to approval or disapproval, a public hearing shall be held in accordance with RSA 6764 ID. That should be 4I. I mean, E, not 4I. Then it goes on to say, notice of public hearing shall be given to the applicant, abutters, holders of conservation, reservation, or agricultural preservation restrictions. The public and every engineer, architect, and surveyor or professional seal appears on the plat. That's part of that in there. And then we could just say that is the, or per 676 4 ID, which I had set up there before. That's a notification. So we should be talking about notifying those people. 676:4 is an ID, which is a notification for that. In that sentence.
I don't have that anywhere.
Anyway,
this-
Page 8.
No, I'm looking at this.
Oh, there, okay, looking under 676.
4.
First one is 4 I, or row number 1 on D. That is the notification paragraph.
Oh, okay, within time,
Okay.
when the time period's specified.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
notification part of it.
Yeah.
And the one that we looked at before was 676:4 IE. And that says the public hearing has to be held in accordance with that RSA. That just says, the RSA just says that the planning board has to hold a public hearing on a site plan.
Yeah.
Just another small little wording thing here.
No, just in regard to public hearings, sometimes I don't think that people are here for public hearing. They might like to be here for, because we move right on into a public hearing. And I think we might get more public interaction and vocalization of how they feel about these things if we, on some of the things, we might be able to hold off the public hearing and notice it.
Yeah, I agree with that because it also gives the board a chance to think about the
Yes.
application, and think about things here and there. The only thing, you know, I'm torn the other way is because they took away the 90-day review period and brought it down to 65 days. So that we're cutting ourselves short again, another 2 weeks short again by doing that. You know, it's nice. I think it is best to think about the thing before we actually have the public hearing. We accept the application, we all have it, think about it, and we've got, really intelligent questions to ask the applicant when they come in for the public hearing and those things. But again, we've got that time. So it hasn't been a problem. We just have to consider that. But I agree with that. It's a good thing to do sometimes, just to accept it at one meeting, have the public hearing at the next. But some of those are small.
Yeah, they might not come to every meeting, they might not come to that initial meeting, but if they're noticed of a public hearing on that meeting, they've had time to think about it, then we get more public interaction.
When they get the notice, it does mention that we may have a public hearing right afterwards in that notice. So
Yeah,
they
this
do
is
know about
true,
that.
but we may have,
Yeah.
and they may not
Well, it says
consider
the
it.
public hearing will be held right afterwards, or if not, time and date. Something like that. So they're pretty much aware that we're having a public hearing on some of that stuff.
So go on, right, that usually, right?
We do, yeah. It's
Mhm.
basically, it's some of the smaller things that should go right on like that.
Yeah.
Nothing that you have to wait 2 more weeks, waiting around for what the planning board's gonna do. But some of the larger things, yeah, we might have, think about it time, but again, those longer ones, we will switch to that 5 days. So we use the time.
That's, I think that's where our ability to go in before we have that application review.
And we also can continue the public hearing,
But it was still on that clock.
Yeah, but we can still, right, still on the clock, you're right, but we still continue the public hearing, and think about it for another 2 weeks, and then come back. Makes sense to do that with a lot of the larger projects, because you can't think about everything at the meeting when you're there. When you get home, you think about, what happened that, or why did they say that, or did they really say this or something? But when you close the public hearing and decide on the matter, you don't want to, the board members suggest, because again, I forget things at the meeting, I'm trying to run it, trying to concentrate on keeping it flowing there, but just suggesting, well, shall we postpone or continue the public hearing for the next meeting? We're already going to, I think, we talked about not having a public hearing until we've heard from the Conservation Commission. The meeting's getting stepped a little bit. Did we ever? Was that in these our rules of procedure? Native rules of procedure.
Don't they meet just once a month?
We wanted to make sure that we didn't have a public hearing before they got a chance to meet, because after the public hearing, we close it. Then it's done.
Yeah, I know we discussed it. I remember discussing it, but I don't know as we put it in writing.
We can always commence the public hearing and reserve decision, which gives us an additional time frame to render a decision, or reserve decision pending receipt of the Conservation Committee's.
It's still on the clock, though.
Yeah, it's still on the clock, but it's gotta be in a public meeting. We can just postpone if we actually open a public hearing, we can just, not postpone, people saying that, we can continue the public hearing to the next meeting. If we don't, none of that, but
Then I suppose that if one felt that we could make a motion that we not have the public hearing
That we
until the
have.
next meeting.
not hold a public hearing until next meeting, I could do that. But it's still on the clock, like Richard said, regardless.
Yeah, it
if we
is.
Open the public hearing or not, we're still on.
But we can't be, I don't feel like we should be pushed.
I know, I feel that way so often, so I feel like the pressure, when I know one, I just need to think more. So we should, like, in practice, we should feel, it sounds like you're encouraging us in practice to feel free to propose that we continue if we're not ready.
Yeah.
If we just feel too much pressure.
Any other things going up at the meeting, don't let me carry the meeting. Just join in, don't think that you got a stupid question or a question that you shouldn't ask or whatever, just ask it. That's the way we have the discussion on these meetings, that's the way we get things done. So again, if it looks like I'm carrying the meeting or taking over the meeting, just butt in, say something.
There's no way that that we can stay a decision that would stop the clock and restart it? Is it?
Everything, but you know,
Take the battery out.
funny thing about that, the planning board has 65 days to do that. If the planning board hasn't acted within the 65 days, the selectmen have another 30 days to convince the planning board to make a decision. And then if that 30 days is up, the selectmen have another 10 days, it can't be 40 days, they have another 10 days to actually approve it. So actually, if the planning board wants to be negligent, they can have another 30 days, because then it goes to the selectmen, writing them a letter saying, hey, you have to act on it.
Purposely negligent.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little catch-22 there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's another 30 days. I don't know that we really want to be doing that.
As long as the board understands it's strategic, as long as the selectmen understand.
Yeah, but it'll always be approved.
Only if the selectmen do it, you know. the
Right, if
selectmen
you guys don't want to approve.
Selectmen have 30 days to convince the planning board to do something. And then if the planning board doesn't, then the selectmen have 10 days, and it has to be approved.
But then I think then our situation was, according to the legal advice that we got, we would lose control. Once the selectmen say you've got to approve it, then they could go back.
The selectmen can't tell us to approve it. The selectmen has to tell us to act on it. They can't say which way that we have to act on it. They just have to say that you guys gotta act on it in 30 days or in 40 days, we're gonna make a decision for you. You don't make a decision.
Right.
But after 60, you can only approve it, right?
So is it?
Or 65.
65? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe so. I'll be reading that wrong. Anyway, yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, okay, move on.
Let's do what we've been doing. We've been doing
30
okay.
days, right?
5 days, so. Yeah. Okay, this was the old 706-4, and it reads that the public hearing was included in the notice of submission. Any prior notice, additional notice of the public hearing is not required. Additional notice is not required of any adjournment session, a hearing provided the date, time, and place of the adjourned session was made known at the prior meeting. But it refers to it as hearing, I think, in the RSA, so I'm just suggesting we change that word to hearing. So,
I think I kind of want to speak to that, considering the situation that we even had this evening. We've had a public hearing posted, but we didn't have a public hearing, we did not open a public hearing, we did not accept an application as complete, but we announced the change of the date for that public hearing at the meeting.
we
So I just
announced,
want to question it.
we announced the date of the application, but we didn't accept an application or anything to do a public hearing, or we weren't accepting it. What are you saying?
We didn't
open a public hearing.
So, yeah, let's take a look at the agenda. What I'm saying is, you're suggesting if we're going to, oh, so that section is only applying for public hearing? Okay, never mind,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah, only public hearing. One. Yeah, the RSA, I circled it. The addition, proper notice, the date, time, and place of the adjourned session was made known at the prior hearing. So, we'll leave that. Got notes on landscape. We need to look at that landscaping because it's causing some trouble.
Especially characters.
Just looking to see if I have any other notations on that, but we need to look at that. We did this 4-year extension, let's see. Do that finally. Yeah, we have under telecommunications facilities there. Section 9, I'm not sure what it is in our original one, but again, it's a minor thing, I'll just read you the paragraph. It's talking about the setback of towers, and it reads, towers must be set back a distance equal to 125% of the height of the tower from any on-site residential structure. So we're limiting it.
That's Steve's formula right there, right?
It is, that's right, but we're limiting that to that amount, to that distance there. So I think we ought to just have it read like this. Towers must be set back a minimum distance of at least 125% of the height of the tower from any on-site residential structure. That means that they can be set back further. This is saying that it has to be at 125%. We're just saying.
Or more, you want to, we feel it needs to be pushed back even further.
Yeah, that it's a minimum. We're setting a minimum standard there
Okay.
of at least 125% of the height of the tower.
That makes sense.
So it can be further back.
Right.
So we don't limit ourselves. That, just wanted to check, we got the special flood hazard areas there. That was the old 13. And I just was wondering, Sarah, if you know, from number 2, and we refer to the flood insurance rate maps and flood boundary and floodway maps of the town of Swanzey. They did May 5th, 1981.
Should I make sure that matches? what
Yeah.
we just updated?
Yeah, just want to make sure that. And we have that new tenant application. Remember, we did that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was going to read like this. We had A, B, and C. Yeah. So I think we decided to go with C, which says new tenant applications. Businesses moving into a multi-use building that has received previous site plan approval and previous multi-tenant approval for the same type of permitted use may be allowed with planning board approval without further formal site plan review or public hearing before the planning board. The public hearing is deemed necessary in such a case, notice will be given pursuant to RSA 6764 I. Thing. That, I think, that covers that new tenant application, one we had in the old. We're going to replace that statement, everyone. Agree with that?
Yep.
Under that, same thing under home base, the number 1, where it says application submitted, can we insert applications that have been submitted? Making that more.
Yeah. You're right. Application submitted to the Board of Selectmen for qualification of use as home-based business.
You know, so after applications, just insert that have been.
I think what it's intended to say is applications first are submitted to the Board of Selectmen, and then after the selectmen qualify, then the next things happen. It's a bad sentence.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Make it make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Victoria's right. I think that's what that, the intent of that.
Selectmen first, then us.
What?
Selectmen first.
Okay, Sarah, going to come up with some different wording on that.
Is that a D again or a D as far as the notice? RSA 676:4 high.
That would be the D, because the E just talks about the requirement of having to have a public hearing. The D is about noticing.
I'm sorry, but under 676:4, I don't have an I.
Let me see.
Well, 676 for Roman numeral 1.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I've been saying I the whole time. It's right underneath that one. On page
So,
77. That's effective January 1st, 2023. There's another one further back that was
Yeah, but revocation and
effective until
order.
477, page 477.
Let me, if I may, just give me a second more to get my fingers working here. Oh, I understand my mistake. Because I was looking after the 674 on 482, it says 676-4-A. And that's what,
Yeah, that's a little bit.
yes, so that's why I was a little confused to what, sorry about that.
Under the appeals, we had, add a little something to that because there's the new, with the housing appeal board, the new board that's.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes,
We might have to make reference to that, which has to do with housing. But we read now appeals, any person agrees by decision of the planning board, may appeal said decision to the Superior Court pursuant to RSA 6717. Is approved by the board is based on plan.
Yeah, we'll have to put the housing order, it's a state choice.
So we have to put unless, because it's not for everything, it's not for the businesses. Only for the housing, but it is.
Right, it's only for housing.
I think it is too, to this name the housing there. So you might have to put it, or a separate sentence that says, an appeal may be made under that new housing.
Feel for it, yeah.
Board, if it has to do with housing.
Or the Supreme Court as applicable.
Yeah.
Well, they can't go through the board before they go to Supreme Court. You can't go right to the Supreme Court.
Well,
Yeah,
you're saying it's
no.
applicable, whether it's a business or multi.
On the appeal, if it's a housing, it goes to the housing board, it's a if it's commercial, then it goes to the Superior Court after the appeal.
No, yeah.
What's that?
Commercial goes to Superior Court.
Yeah,
It's a commercial one. Before they had the housing appeals, you would go to the zoning board of adjustment. If your gripe was that the planning board didn't follow the zoning of that town, then you go to your ZBA.
yeah, that's,
Now it is that if it's under the housing part of it,
yeah,
you can go to the housing appeals board to appeal a decision by the planning board. But if it's not, if it's industrial, then you go to Superior Court.
yeah, it's 679 in this.
In Roxbury, didn't they just, it seemed like the developer, the applicant
517, page 517.
went to the Housing Appeals Board, and then that, together as a party, they appealed to the Superior Court.
You can
Is that
appeal
what
it.
happened?
Yeah, you can appeal their decision. If you don't like the housing.
But no, so I think the Housing Appeal Board was supporting the applicant, was you know, representing the applicant
Yeah.
at the Superior Court.
I don't think they were representing them, but the town, I mean, the town did not like the Housing Appeals Board decision because they upheld the subdivision of whoever was the applicant there.
Yeah.
So then the town said, well, we're gonna go to Superior Court because we think we're right. So I don't think the appeals board represented them. I don't think they can do that. I think they had their own attorney.
Okay.
Which we did the same thing. In North Swanzey. Yeah, that was on the ZBA, but not on the planning board.
618, 617, yes. And 679 is the citation. I'm sorry, 517. I'm sorry. Yeah, there aren't that many pages in the book.
Oh, yeah,
Was
the
that-
board
it was
is
Housing
at the
Appeals
bottom.
Yes, Housing Appeals Board, when it was established. Mhm.
Yeah, I was looking for that.
That is attached to theirs, which would go away.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah,
rejected
2020.
3 times by the legislature.
On page
Learning and
517.
experience.
Chapter 679.
On 17, bottom right. Starting here, we can go with it.
So, we also have, this is back in November, we had a correspondence, actually it was to the Conservation Commission from Jay Ward, regarding the groundwater protection. We added some groundwater detection and protection stuff, and wellhead protection stuff, in the ordinance here. And they had some suggestions on it, and one of them was that, their paragraph is that on any property where land disturbing activities are to take place, all inactive wells not in use or properly maintained at the time the site work plan is submitted shall be considered abandoned, must be sealed by the well owner in accordance with the most current version of the Hampshire Water Well Board rules. WE 804. So they suggested putting that in there, which is probably a good suggestion, just in case, you never know, there's an old well there.
Well,
Wells against and/or cistern, just in case somebody has a,
Well, why not? 'Cause there's a
he
big
said it's
cistern
not a
right up
well,
there.
it's a cistern.
Yeah, there's a big one up there, so yeah.
Yeah.
Cisterns in there,
When Conservation Commission just a few years ago were walking on, over by the Kenny farm, Crescent, not Crescent, in the woods, there was an old well there, and there were boards that had been laid on top of it, but they were much deteriorated. And Steve Stepanek did go back on his own time and put boards on there that fit, and so they could be seen. But I suppose it's still there. Yeah.
So,
So that's not properly sealed, so no, it's better than it's there.
What?
Still probably not properly sealed.
I don't know if it is or if it went with what the town owns now. That we'd have to check.
this just covers site plan and regulations for anything other than residential use. Residential property, then.
Where would it fit, Scott? Where would you put it in?
That would be, I think we did, we had, mine it was, this is a balance. They've had it under general standards. Yeah, under general standards is where they had it.
It's not.
It could be.
It should be.
General standards was
Or
on
general provisions.
page 12, I thought.
That's landscaping general standards. This is general.
Oh, whoops, there we go. The actual general standards.
Oh, right there.
What was it, page what?
9.
Oh, right by it. There we go.
Well, maybe they did put it in
Oh,
specific.
maybe they did. It said general standards, but maybe they did. They had it right after the water supply and sewage. And we had something in there about that. Sure. Yeah, and they did have it on there. I've got a number 6, it's not number 6 on yours, but they had it right after the water supply and sewage systems.
Take it back for it.
It would go there.
So-
We can just renumber those, I suppose. So we have 12 things in that category. We have water supply and sewage disposal systems, we have underground fuel storage tanks, stormwater drainage, pollution control, handicap persons, utilities, transition, or physical fine.
You want to become a new number 7?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, that is fit there, because then the next one is underground fuel storage. And, well, yeah, that'd be good. That paragraph that they had, adding cisterns in there. You have a copy of that?
Should I put a copy of that? If I don't, I'll call you.
And they had another division in there. And this was under stormwater drainage. They had for any use that will render impervious more than 15% or more than 2,500 square feet of any lot, whichever is greater, stormwater management plan shall be clear areas which will find where the consistent with the current provision of the New Hampshire Stormwater Manual. Generally, you have, I don't know, that's a small area, that's only like 50 feet by 50 feet, so that'd be every single development. Probably 30 by 50 foot building. So that sounds a little restrictive to me, although we do have, normally, they have to present a stormwater drainage plan on all the sites. Stormwater drainage. We talked about increasing the peak flow of surface runoff. You can't go onto another property. What does anybody think? I know you don't have a copy of this, I just have a copy of it. It's from one of our meetings.
Well, the 4 condo units there on the road, you know, he referenced that we have a detention space area there.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Driveway.
They all kind of have to, because part of the site plan review regulations is that no stormwater can leave the property. So, it's pretty much covered, whether it's there or not, although they do building coverage and impervious. Well, I think we have it covered with that. Anybody else think about that? I think we do too. They also suggested at the number 3, there should be a designated area for snow accumulation and or sewer dumping on outside sources. We do have a designated areas for snow accumulation, but we don't allow outside sources to dump snow that I know of anyway. It have to be, we didn't, yeah, it have to be a use. We don't have that as a use. We have that in there. But again, these are suggestions, but they get to us where.
We don't have any way of measuring that. You know, I mean, people say, oh, we'll just put the seal over there. We don't, like, you know, the stone that we just got. I know when we were talking about the development of Russell Wilson Pond, that Mike Desmond said, oh, we'll just truck it out. But we don't have any way to quantify whether the snow storage space is adequate.
Other than it taking up their parking spaces, no.
Yeah.
That's all. And again, it's difficult to do, you know, because you don't have storms like we had the other day.
What do you do when you get a light snow versus a heavy snow? Wet snow versus dry snow?
Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah.
And it has to be taking up their parking spaces. But it can be added as a condition of a site plan, but it has to be enforced all the time. You know, after a big snow, Mike doesn't have to have to say, well, okay.
I don't think we'll win points.
There's no town location where anyone in town could dump their snow from the parking area, is there?
I don't think, not that I know of. Not even at the dump, I don't think.
Yeah, because I know like in Keene, they're allowed to do it where the old dump used to be.
Yeah. And the fairgrounds will sometimes get the snow trucked in
Mm-hmm.
for the purpose of doing the winter carnival.
Mm-hmm.
Snow cross or whatever they call it. So they build the big ramps. But that's unwasted that point.
That's right, yeah. And see, we had also under the aquifer protection part of it and wellhead protection area there. We covered, they go through it as far as, they have outdoor storage areas for regulated substances associated with material or waste. We've got that covered on E, F, and G, page 9. So we'll hold off on that. I can read some of these there, but we can hold off on that. There, but I went through them. Same, I think they pretty much just copied what we had there. Yeah, they added in this. We don't have anything about it, you know, right, so we might want to add this in. And it really, an approved plan for blasting activities. All activities related to blasting shall be performed in accordance with current New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services blasting best management practices to prevent contamination of groundwater. These include preparing, reviewing, and following an approved blasting plan, fire, proper drilling, explosive handling, and loading procedures. Drilling and fire blasting procedures, evaluating blasting components, and handling and storage of blasting rock. So we might want to put that in there because blasting may affect an aquifer. Not too much better up around here, but behind.
Even just some of the big erratics, you know, are too big to move.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it won't be like exciting blasting,
So we might want to consider putting that in there.
especially as we get more built out. You know, there's going to be less.
Would, in the application, would Mike not see that and bring that to their attention to follow, if they have to follow the state and federal?
Yeah, they do anyway, you're right, they do anyways.
Hmm.
But, you know, it probably wouldn't hurt to have it in the regs.
Mhm.
Being there, you know, I don't know, up to the board.
So one won't hurt my health.
See, anything else, the proposed animal storage for manures and fertilizers, we've got that in there. Spill control and countermeasure plan, we have that in there. That was it. J Ward. Let's see. We also had, this is from Jay Ward on February 3rd. And he just had some thoughts on the harmony and compatibility of the project compared to the existing site and neighborhood. This was that the planning board determination of whether the proposed site plan and building architecture is acceptable shall depend on but not be limited to the following appearance factors. Talks about building materials and the planning board should be suitable for the durability and appearance of the project. We've got that covered under section 8. 12B. That's in the new one. Looking at yours is on that one. I went through them to see if we had them building size and any board, but not necessarily the size of the other buildings in the area. We can't. That's covered under density. Can't really talk about that really other than zoning density. The colors of the building, the planning board must be informed with the colors of the building in the neighborhood. Again, we've got that covered. 8 or 12B. Okay, we've got the shape of the building, including roof lines, and the planning board must be according to other buildings in the neighborhood. We probably can't do too much on the shape of the building. We can't be dictating that, but we have dictated the roof, like we did down here. Over there. So we could put that in there. I don't think we have roof lines in there. We could specifically put roof lines.
Where are you at architectural plans? Is that what you're comparing? I mean, where would this go?
Where would it go? It would go under the harmony and compatibility. They've got it. But it would
It's a
go-
whole new
It
section.
would go under section 8. And let me just see here. Again, I'm going by a different one. We'll all have this one for next meeting. Probably. So probably need some
Or
marks.
so that was general standards, design and development standards.
I think we should have the roofing in there so that the last two they gave into us.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to actually do that.
No, but their benefit that they did.
Yes.
Because we have this on page 16 of the version that I think most of us have, it's architectural plans. And it says the evaluation of the following appearance factors will govern the planning board's decisions on whether the proposed building designs are acceptable. And it talks about harmony and compatibility.
Yeah.
Lighting design, building materials and color considerations. We talk about woodwork, but we could add, maybe we could add some of that stuff to this section.
Probably the section that should go. Section one, the new section here.
Probably, two, building elevations.
What's that?
Following the trigger,
Okay, yeah.
building elevations, there you go.
Well, that just says that the plan shall indicate
Yeah.
building, but doesn't say that we have any authority to evaluate that.
So we're talking about the roof lines being added in there someplace, right?
Can we do building material, like number one, under evaluation of the following appearance factors? Building materials, features, and color considerations. Features, I know they do some windows and some of the.
Yeah.
Halls over there.
And that's within our jurisdiction to, outside the parent windows and doors and things like that, style of those. So, yeah, roof, maybe just roof lines somewhere in there, in that first one. That one that is colored line. Lighting design, they have lighting, we have lighting in there. Lighting design on It's got a number 6 on here that reads, the retention, alteration, or removal of existing structures and site features should, in the opinion of the planning board, be the appearance of the site in accord with the surrounding neighborhood. So that's a control there, you know. They retain the building that's on the property, it's on the property, it's already there. Alteration, that's one thing, but that's gonna be covered in the site plan anyway. Removal of the existing structure, talking about the appearance of the site in accord with the surrounding neighborhood. I'll read it again, but I don't know that we can make much sense of that. The retention, alteration, or removal of existing structures and site features should, in the opinion of the planning board, be the appearance of the site in accord with the surrounding neighborhood. No, I'm reading from a page. We've got this back in one of our February meetings. I just kept it in here because I know we're going to be going over sometime. And this was some suggestions. They were from Jay Ward. And there it was after we had some of those big meetings there on the apartment buildings there. So these were the suggestions. They knew that we were going to be going over a site plan review. So kept them so we could bring them up at the meeting. But that one, I don't think makes so much sense. I think.
Well, it's already in under, on page 16 of the old one, the evaluation of the following appearance factors, and then number 4 is retention, alteration, or removal of existing structures and site features.
Okay.
Period. So we just added in what I think is already covered by the top part, which is what we are evaluating.
And that was the last one. I had those 2 suggestions from, like I say, we're gonna discuss the, maybe not tonight, but we better discuss the landscaping part of it there. Come up with some kind of, and we go into a lot of it with suggesting the types of trees and ground cover. I don't know if we should be in that business of telling them which ones to grow, because they don't grow. And, well, the planning board suggested they do that. Plus, it probably should just refer back to this, the soil survey. You know, we get the plats in here, and the plats always have the soil survey on, what kind of soil is there. And the Chester County Soil Survey, you look it up there, they tell you what kind of trees and shrubs are indigenous for that, as well as what type of things should be planted and what will grow well and what will not grow well in the soil. So maybe we ought to just say that they should refer back to the soil survey as to what to use for their trees or shrubs. Probably mainly trees. Shrubs probably not a problem. I can bring in soil for shrubs and stuff. Trees are a problem.
If we tell them to go ahead and plant hemlocks and they die in 10 years, then are we liable for the 10, those trees that die?
Say we're liable for anything.
The plan for the landscape business said they were going to plant certain kind of pear, and I looked it up, and it is considered invasive by many now because it's been used so much in the United States. It's a Chinese origin, but it's been used a lot because it is a tree that grows fast and blooms beautifully, but it's been used so much that now it's,
Was it the powdery pear?
yeah.
Okay, and that's noted as one of ours in here, so
Yeah.
maybe we ought to just forget about giving them suggestions and let them figure out and us approve what they come up with. Or
Yeah,
somebody-
and you can look them up very easily on Google or any search engine.
Like in the past, we talked about it, and they suggested certain types of things that they'd like to see, and if we can make an agreement between the abutter and the developer, that's the best of both worlds.
The other thing, the other kind that I noticed that they had was a spruce, and fine, but when I looked that spruce up, there were other spruces on the list that looked better than that, that grew faster than that, and were described as being thicker than that, but I don't want to tell them what to plant. But I would draw their attention to the fact that they have an invasive on the list, and it's kind of strange because they are a landscaping company.
One thing they took it off of our application.
Yeah, it probably did. So another reason I think to get rid of that part of it is it says on the recommended general approach to landscaping, use plants that are suitable for roadside and parking lot conditions or detailed lists. I gotta go to New Hampshire Resources there. So maybe we ought to just have in there use plants that are suitable for roadside and suitable to the soils that are found on the site in accordance with the soils survey.
They get rid of recommending any type of species.
Yeah, and yeah.
They have that,
Or just reference the New Hampshire list, period.
they have a winter flame dogwood on there too. Oh my gosh. We planted one of those by mistake, and that thing's ugly. It doesn't do
Need to borrow a
anything for
chainsaw?
anything. Huh?
Need to borrow a chainsaw?
No, it isn't even that big. I could cut it down, but
So let's just have something there that says that the trees selected should be suitable to the soils that.
Yeah, I like that.
and for the purpose they're planted.
Well, that too, the planning board will tell them. if the purpose-
Yeah, okay.
Plant a little midget tree about that big. Yeah, that applies well with that. And probably get rid of that long list of trees. The parking was part of it, we need to go over some of that at some point there. The, we have the 10%. It was a 10% for green or open space in the interior of the parking lot, is what we were having a problem with one of the site plans there. And,
That's a rabbit hole. Do you want to go down that tonight?
well, yeah, we're probably,
I think Sarah would prefer we get.
yeah, it's getting kind of.
I certainly
so
would
we
too.
probably won't, but just something to think about there.
Mhm.
Take a look at some of the existing
Yeah.
parking lots, and I've looked at some of them, and a lot of them, that isn't 10% in there. It looks, we'll take market basket, I've got the market basket plan. We'll go over it at another
Oh
time.
my goodness.
But those are parking, that parking lot up there, just from a rough calculation, it looks like about 7% of the interior of the parking lot is green space, and it looks fine, it's a nice parking lot. They did a pretty good job. But again, we ought to probably think about that, nail that down, and think about what we're gonna include, because remember, we had that discussion, you weren't on board, but you were part of that discussion, as to what should be included in the green.
Well, my nose is desperately when I can't take meds.
Okay. I will not say anything. Yes, no worries there. So yeah, I brought a set of plans that I've got from, with Market Basket, they're pretty old there. I had them just to locate some sewer lines and stuff up there. a good set of plans just to look at and get familiar with, we could look more, if you take bring to look over them tonight and continue this discussion.
Boy, we haggled over those.
Yeah.
Boy,
They're
Lord.
a good set of plans, but we didn't have quite a while.
I wasn't on the board, but I was in all the meetings.
Generally, go with them a bit. So that's so maybe we'll quit right there as far as site plan regs. There's a bunch of stuff to add, and if you could copy up the that there, and we'll all be going on the same one next time and see what it looks like.
Would you like me to make the additions in italicized so that they're easier to see, or just take them right in?
I would say just type them in and go through it. You want to see what's been changed, we can compare it to the old one if you want to see what's been changed, but I don't know. There's a lot to, especially with rearranging.
Right.
With the whole,
That and remembering that. We can compare and read the old one. So it's up to the board. Does anybody want to take a look at any of the plans, or shall we focus on that in the next meeting?
I move we adjourn.
I'm excited to look at the plans, but I'm tired.
Yeah.
Right, please.
Can I just mention a couple of things and then we can adjourn? There was two things I've been thinking about that we may think about in the future, what we want to do with. And coming range, I guess they call it, EV charging stations.
The what?
EV, electric vehicle charging stations.
Yeah.
How do we want to write some kind of ordinance or plan, site plan regulations on those? If they go into a commercial building, like say a Marlowe's or another place. And the other thing was little houses.
Little houses?
Little
Yeah, they're
houses.
little, yeah, I know what you mean.
Right.
They're in the paper all the time.
Right. Right, it is a lot of other things, but I just throw it out there because I know there's a lot of talk about the little houses.
Come up with some.
Are they RVs or are they really houses? or
No,
what
they're
are
really houses and some of them are really ugly. And I've seen in the magazine.
Talking points for those at the next meeting.
Anyway, that's it.
Okay.
Need a motion on the
Second.
table.
Jane made a motion.
I'll second.
To adjourn.
Thank you, Scott.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.